Hello there and welcome back to the Irish Film London podcast season 2. I'm your host Niamh Brannigan and I'm joined with Jerry Maguire. How are you this week, Jerry?
I'm very well, Niamh. Thank you very much. It's nice to be back.
Good. So I didn't do what I said I was going to do. I said I was going to take a leaf out of the book that I should have done, and I'm not going to watch Conversation with Friends. I'm not going to binge it. I'm going to just take it all in and enjoy each episode and have gaps in between.
What did you do?
And what did she do? She binged it and it was beautiful. I'm glad I binged it in the end.
I have to say, I haven't looked at it at all yet. I haven't got a chance to look at it at all yet. I've been pretty busy with other stuff this last couple of weeks, but yeah,
and we will hear about that. Yeah, I think I just have no willpower. But basically, I really enjoyed it. It's beautiful. It's beautifully shot. The people in it are beautiful, so that always really helps watching. I do want to say, like, for listeners maybe who haven't watched it yet, or maybe who have watched it and are kind of thinking the same thing, is that because we've kind of gotten the band back together in regards to Lenny and Element and all that kind of stuff, you can't compare it to normal people.
Right.
Like you can't like put them side by side. It's not a sequel. Yeah. It's not obviously the same characters or kind of anything to do with that. You really kind of have to look at it as a standalone piece of television, you know?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think there will be a lot of expectation around that for people, that like Normal People was such a hit, especially being the first thing that we all flocked to during lockdown. And when you see a new Sally Rooney show coming around, you might think, oh, this is going to be Normal People part 2 or something, but it's like my understanding of Conversations with Friends is that it's very different based to Normal People,
and I think that's okay, you know. I think it's always hard. It's kind of feels like that, you know, that second song or that second album, you know, kind of thing of, you know, we'll just take it as a thing in itself, you know. But one thing that I will say that really came up in the last kind of year or two, and especially in regards to Normal People, it really brought it to the forefront, was I really found the sex scenes really kind of true and genuine and like delicately handled and you know, that kind of thing, because the intimacy coach on it is like one of the best in the biz, I think, isn't she?
This is true, yeah. Ita O'Brien, I think is her name. Like she's the UK's leading intimacy coordinator, and I remember from speaking to Lenny last year when we were talking about his work in January last year, he was talking about working with Ita and how important it was for him to make sure that people on the set that he's directing are respected and looked after, and that the product, like the visual product that comes out, is not gratuitous, that it's something deeper and more meaningful. Yeah.
No, definitely. And I think as well, actually, one thing, I actually probably would have loved to see it as a film. As kind of one consecutive. So I don't know. I wonder, would anyone else feel like that? So I'd be interested to see what you think when you get a chance to watch it. But enjoyed it nonetheless. But another cool thing that's come out finally for people who didn't get to catch it at the Virgin Media Dublin Film Festival was Colleen Keown is now released.
Yes, a big release. Like across Ireland and the UK, it's just really made its mark. I've heard
smashing it.
One of the distributors call it the little film that could. know, it's met our expectations for it. We were always really excited about it at Irish Film London, but I read that it took over €100,000 on its opening weekend, which is a massive deal for a small film, let alone a film at scale. There's been loads of stories of people who watched it and shared their comments about it on social media and urged other people to go and see it. It's just beautiful to see, and from what I hear from the team at Breakout Pictures, it's done just as well Tuesday and Wednesday this week, so its midweek audience has been just as big, which does point to word of mouth. It points to people who've gone to see it on its opening weekend and said, you guys have to go and see this, and then people are using their midweek tickets to really amplify the audience. So I'm really hoping that second weekend proves to be just as popular and that it maintains. I want to see it in cinemas for as long as possible.
Definitely. I think like word of mouth in regards to the arts is just so important, in the sense of, you know, sometimes the arts kind of really, going to anything in regards to the arts, like the cinema or the theater or anything like that, kind of comes down at the bottom of the list, because, you know, tickets can be expensive, and, you know, life is getting more and more expensive. So once you hear someone saying, no, you have to see it, you know what I mean, it's kind of, it's easier than just kind of taking a risk or taking a punt on something, you know, that you don't know. So the fact that it's, you know, people are going, no, you really have to, I think people are listening, you know, and trusting other people's opinion and getting out to see it. It's smashing it, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, good.
So we're going to start into a little Jessie rant, and the first one we're going to chat about is Jessie Buckley. So another kind of big release that's going to be coming out, starring her, is a film called Men, which is an A24 film, which I feel like always has big expectations.
Yeah, there's a bit of an A24 cult around these days, but yeah, they've just got great films on release. Yeah, so Men is a new film by Alex Garland, who is the director of great films like Ex Machina and Annihilation, and earlier ones like Never Let Me Go. It features Jessie Buckley in the lead role alongside Rory Kinnear, who plays basically every other character in the film, which is like pretty crazy. But yeah, really exciting high concept horror that I'm looking forward to seeing.
I love the kind of she does mad stuff, which like that other film that she was in. I'm thinking about Ending Things. I just love like the risks she takes, but then also you see her in like Wild Rose. You know what I mean? Like she can kind of just do it all, and she really can do it all, in the sense of that she won an Olivier for Cabaret, which is just unreal.
Yeah, it's the perfect kind of accolade for her to get.
Yeah.
For what she did in that role.
She could just hang up her coat now. Like, come on, what can't she do? She's amazing. So another Jessie then that we want to talk about is the producer Jessie Fisk. So she worked on films like Wolf and Song of Granite and loads more. But she's been selected by the European Film Promotion, so the EFP, as Ireland's producer on the move for 2022, which is amazing. So it's basically, I was looking it up, and it's like 20 of the most promising up and coming European producers. They're selected to take part in this EFP like high profile hybrid promotion and networking platform at Cannes. So it's basically like speed dating for producers. But then they also do a 5-day on-site program, including like case studies, social events, and like just what an introduction into, you know, the big spenders and the top dogs into the production world.
Totally. Like Producers on the Move is like one of those things where if you're selected for it, it massively accelerates your career as a producer. And Jessie's a producer whose work we've been excited about at IFL for a long time. We screened Wolf a couple of months ago at our Patrick's Day Film Festival, and Jessie came across to the screening, and it was brilliant to meet her. And I know that she's been around and like working really hard funding her projects for a long time, and it's just the work that she's involved in is really exciting. So it's even more so exciting to see a producer like that selected for something like this.
And you can see her hard work kind of, you know, she's moving up. It's paying off for sure.
It's the hard work paying off, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So what's next then with IFL? IFL's going on tour.
IFL's going on tour. Woo! We're taking 2 films on tour in June. We are taking New Yorker Time by Vivian Dick, a film that won the Best Documentary Award at the Irish Film Festival London in November, and a really special little film called To the Moon by Tadhg O'Sullivan. Both of those are Arts Council Ireland funded films, and both of them are on tour with us at multiple venues across the UK in June. So we are going to the CCA in Glasgow on the 3rd and 4th of June, bank holiday weekend. We are in Liverpool on the 8th of June. Both films are playing on the same evening in Liverpool at Fact. And then in Manchester we are at Home, which is Manchester's kind of premier venue for for indie film, and that's on the 14th and 20th of June. New York Our Time plays there on Tuesday the 14th, and I believe 20th is a Monday, and that's To the Moon in Manchester. We may have more dates announced for that, so keep an eye out on the Irish Film London website. But if you go to irishfilmlondon.com/events, you will see all the details for that tour. So if you are listening from Glasgow or Liverpool or Manchester, or you know people there, please send them our way. Let them know that these events are happening. Obviously these are events happening outside of London, so we need as much support as we can get to bring audiences down to them. They're really special events, and we want to see as many people there as we can.
Amazing. And then another important date for some filmmakers for IFL is the
30th.
Yes.
So the
30th. Okay.
30th of May, submissions are open for the Irish Film Festival London on Film Freeway. They're open after the 30th of May, but it gets more expensive after that. So our early bird deadline is the end of May. Get your films into us early. We need to get them in early. Hopefully you're going to send us your film anyway, but if you want to get it in cheap, get it in before May the 30th. So we've already had loads of really exciting submissions. There's some real corkers in there, and from familiar names and some brand new ones, and we are really excited to get pre-selecting on those, and we want to see as many as possible, so come and get them to me.
Exciting. Okay, so this week's interview, we want to put out a little disclaimer, don't we, Jerry?
We do, yes. This is on me.
I mean, come on, it's okay. Yeah.
So this week's interview is with the brilliant cinematographer Kate McCullough, cinematographer on Colleen Kuhn and Aract and Normal People, and I think Conversations with Friends actually as well, and loads of stuff. And Kate and I caught up a few weeks ago, well in advance of the release of The Quiet Girl, and we had a really big long chat which went on for ages, and we managed to get it down to a nice interview for you, but I was full of COVID. Full of the COVID, so I sound really nasal, and I'm actually dosed up on paracetamol, and I'm fairly chilled sounding, to say the least.
It's a lovely interview. It's very chill interview.
Kate's fairly laid back as well. She's quite sort of softly spoken and everything as well. So between the two of us, maybe I'll bump up the levels so you can hear us properly. But
it's a really lovely chat, and I also as well, another thing, same with Jesse, just so excited to see more from them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jerry, and I hope everyone enjoys.
Thanks so much. See you soon, Neve.
Bye. If you're part of the regular Irish Film London audience or want to get more from your experience, consider joining our growing family of members for a range of exciting benefits. Irish Film London is a non-for-profit organisation. Our mission is to promote the best new Irish film to audiences all over the UK, and with the help of this podcast, the world. If you become a festival friend or a festival champion, you get perks like discounted tickets for films and events, free access to Irish Film from Home films, and invites to networking events, and so much more. So check it out now.
So I'm joined today by the brilliant cinematographer Kate McCullough. Kate, thank you so much for taking time to speak to me today.
Not at all. Delighted to join you.
Brilliant. You'll have to excuse my rather nasally presentation on this interview because I'm battling some sort of cold/COVID or something like that, but we'll see how we get on. The mute button is a great help. But we'll see how we get on. So Kate, we're here to talk really about your work on the new film, multi-IFTA award-winning film, which is about to be released in the UK, and Colleen Kuhn. But you are a cinematographer who has a brilliant history in helping deliver images on the images of Irish films that we know. I wanted to start off by asking you about your road to becoming a DOP or a cinematographer, how you started out and whether there was any major obstacles you faced on the way. I suppose, you know what, the first question out of that is always, do you prefer the term cinematographer or director of photography, or do you care?
Yeah, I think I took a while to be comfortable to say director of photography, because I would have started with documentary once I left college, and in my mind, there wasn't really a team to direct, if you know what I mean. It was
Yeah.
directing myself, and maybe like somebody running around with boxes or cases of things. So cinematographers seemed to sit easier in that um, period. But I think now, I mean, I don't mind either. I guess just director of photography makes a little bit more sense now that I would have like a team of maybe 10 or 15 or 20 people extra. There is an element of direction involved.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, let's talk about how you got to the position that you're in now with this team of people around you. Like, how did you start off in the film business?
So I think that I was always kind of drawing and painting and mucking around at home, and had thought, oh, I'm going to be a painter. I'm going to be an artist. And I think then at a certain point, it seemed like it was maybe going to be a very lonely existence.
Okay.
I thought, okay, I think I prefer to work alongside people. And so, although I had sort of been accepted into an art school in Dublin, and that allowed me to kind of kick back and not really do anything for my leaving cert, which I thought, oh, this is perfect now. I don't just kind of sail through these exams as long as I just kind of pass them. And, but then everybody seemed to be kind of getting into studying and stuff, and then I thought, oh well, maybe I may as well do some of it and apply through the CO regularly. And so I put down the film video production course in Dún Laoghaire, and also photography. And I had done this kind of module in what we call transition year, which is like a fourth year, which is sort of seen as a DOSer year. But it was like a module on photography. And I remember my teacher at the time saying, whatever you do, don't go and do photography.
Why is that? What, did they not think that there was like a career prospect in photography or something?
No, I think he thought that I just was rubbish. So then I
Proved
don't know
them
what there
wrong.
was like definite like kind of reverse psychology happening there, where I thought, okay, I'm going to show him now.
Yeah.
But anyway, between the jigs and the reels, I didn't get accepted into the photography course, but I got accepted into the film course. And I really didn't know anything about film. Like I would have watched, films at home, but not in a sort of nerdy, serious way. I probably spent most of my childhood like running around with a football, or I was quite into sport and being outside. But yeah, like I would have been sort of painting and drawing, I guess, in between that. But yeah, like cinema wasn't a big event with our family. But I remember kind of watching a couple of documentaries in my teens and thinking, oh, that's curious. Like, how are those made? Like, how do you put something like that together? And so when I applied for Dún Laoghaire, it was like, I just had a couple of still photos and drawings and sort of storyboard stories, and yeah, just kind of more sketchbook things. So they seemed to think there was something in that. And there was always this like rumor going around in college, like, oh, somebody's got on the course accidentally. I was like, sure, it was me. I was like the imposter. But anyway, so I kind of kept my head down, and actually for the first time I was like proper kind of nerding. I hadn't really done that in school.
Yeah.
My sister was always very academic and, you know, super brainy. So I think I just kind of was pushing against that and didn't really do a whole pile in school. And then when I got to college, I was like, oh, okay, this is something that I'm kind of like interested in, and
Yeah.
how can I figure this out? And I was so far behind in terms of understanding, like I, you know, I needed to kind of sort of tuck in. And so it was a class of like mainly guys. I think it was like 4 girls. So anyway, all the lads gathered around the cameras, and I didn't really get a chance to get behind the camera, I think, until like second year. And also I was quite shy, you know, and I come from an all girls school, so it was like, you know, ooh, you know, here's the
Yeah,
boy.
yeah.
What do we do here? How do we communicate? Yeah, it was all kind of funny. So yeah, so I did quite a bit of editing in first year, and I think then yeah we had to choose like a subject to specialize in,
Okay.
and I think the course lecturers were like assuming that I would choose editing as a specialization, and then somehow I was like, no, 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 I came here to like use the camera. Like, there's no way I'm going to be an editor, even though I hadn't really kind of shot anything. I just
Yeah.
sort of had this gut feeling that like I needed to follow that, what was in
Oh
my
wow.
mind. Yeah, so that
Did
was
that kind of become like, I guess, did you already feel like you had a passion for it at that stage?
well, I
Like if
just
you were
yeah,
engaging with it in that nerdy way, as you say, like did you
yeah.
feel like you were just drawn to it or something?
I guess it was just like it just seemed to make sense for me, like to
Right, yeah.
use images to tell stories and to be actively creating those images as opposed to receiving them in an
Yeah.
edited scenario, you know. I guess maybe also when I was editing, I thought, oh well, I see what they've done here, but I would have done it differently. Yeah, so it was a good way to learn about the building blocks of putting a film together.
Yeah.
But so yeah, so then I shot quite a lot of short films at college, and by the time I finished, I was sort of a bit burnt out and wasn't sure could I actually make a career out of being a cinematographer, because I couldn't see any other women in Ireland that were doing that, you know, and wasn't really any role models
Yeah.
in my vision or in my sight, you know.
Yeah.
So I think I kind of reached the point where like, okay, is this actually real, or am I just kind of in some kind of college bubble?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, so I went and worked with the homeless for about a year, and then during that time, so I was like, okay, yeah, no, I really miss filmmaking.
Right.
that that's definitely you know my space, and but still felt like I didn't really want to sort of assist, or you know, I wanted to be shooting. Didn't want to kind of go down the union route, so I applied for a bursary in Poland, of all places.
Yeah.
I guess I was kind of drawn to, yeah, sort of Eastern European films, and yeah, like I guess I was kind of pushing against a little bit the American sort of English way of making films, which is, I guess, I mean, I think Ireland is sort of somehow caught between the US sensibility and the European, like we're sort of this floating island between the two. Um, but I was definitely more curious about the sort of European way of doing things, and particularly the kind of hidden messages that were coming through in Eastern European cinema, like where you had to kind of bury the subject a little bit. You know, it had to be a bit
Yeah.
subversive, and in doing that, they had to find, I think, more creative ways, image wise, to deliver that.
Yeah.
Whereas I think, like Irish culture sort of very centered around words and literature. and
Yeah.
so I wasn't necessarily being inspired by Irish cinema, like image wise, that had gone before me.
What kind
So
of Eastern European films were inspiring you at the time?
I mean, of course, Kieślowski and like Vaida and I'm trying to think what else was going on at the time. I mean, it was very like kind of surface,
I
that
mean,
everybody would have been watching.
I'm nodding, but like I have no idea who those people are, so I'm not sure. Not
Like
sure that I would know those if you told me about them.
colors, three colors: red, white,
Oh
blue.
yeah, of course. Yeah, I know those. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And he did a brilliant series called the Decalogue,
Oh
which is
yeah.
a series of 1 hour films, yeah, based on the Ten Commandments, and they're
Oh,
brilliant.
okay.
They're really well worth
Brilliant. Yeah.
yeah. But
Cool.
it's just it's just seemed to be just kind of a different way of looking. And I think also I was just kind of ready to leave Ireland. Like I wanted to um, sort of challenge myself a bit. I think I was a little bit of a home bird, or what's the phrase? Kind of, yeah, like I guess I was youngest in the family, so I was always like, just having it handy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, but just more like maybe protected a little bit in that way. I was quite sick as a kid, like so I think that was probably part of it. But yeah, so went off to Poland, and yeah, just kind of, I think, just finally kind of found my film community. Like there was lots of young women that were wanted to train as cinematographers, and there was
Brilliant.
also a really great female DOP, Jolanta Dolewska, who would come and do lectures there. And so all of a sudden I was like, okay, this is something that's possible. I mean, it
Yeah,
seems kind of basic, like maybe to try and understand. I think, yeah, a lot of it was just believing in yourself that you can actually do
yeah,
this. That it's not gonna you're not gonna fall flat in your face at some point
yeah,
and
yeah,
have to go back and work at home doing, I don't know, something that's completely not related to film.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, did you find that I mean, I guess you're talking about in a sense you're talking about the pressure you felt as a woman and in a male dominated field in Ireland at that time. Like, do you think
Yeah,
that
I mean,
has that
I'm
changed a lot?
not sure it was like pressure, but it was more just like feeling a bit different. Like
Right.
I wasn't really sure who I was there, like there wasn't a community, or I didn't have a sense of community. Whereas at least I think with in Poland, even though like there was a huge kind of paternal sort of scene there, with all the lectures were pretty much male and aging white men, and lots of a really great experience. But like,
Yeah.
there would be a bit sexist, and like
No.
some of the male crew that they got in to assist us, like you had to find a way with them, because you knew that
Right.
because you were a woman, they were sort of like already dismissing
Yeah.
you in some way. But
Okay.
that I think that's probably, it's good training, because ultimately you have to go out into the world, and it's going to be tougher again. So I think I didn't mind it. It was part of the course.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the school there just has a really good system of like sort of starting in black and white, and then moving on to color, still filming on 35mm. By the time I was leaving, then students were choosing to shoot on digital over film. But it was
Okay.
just around the time when the red camera was, I think, emerging.
Yeah. Making a bit of a wave, I guess, at the time. Like
Yeah,
everyone was
that's
shooting
right.
in red for a few years, weren't they?
Yeah, it was like, what is this, but I think the main thing in Poland was that it was there was free and open kind of criticism of your work, so you had to kind of really stand for the decisions that you'd taken, stand by them whether they were right or wrong. You just had
Right.
to take the responsibility for what you had done, and it was like you go into the little cinema there, and everybody would pile in, like your peers and lecturers, and then afterwards there would be sort of a commission where you had to like speak about your work, and then they would sort of comment, and they might even comment during the film as well. We're like, what is this shit? So yeah, it was definitely it was a sort of formative few
Yeah.
years. I think also learning a new language and just sort of breaking out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, yeah. That's dead interesting. I mean, if I think about your if I think about like your body of work and think about it in the context of that more, I guess, European sensibility,
Mm.
I guess I can see some evidence of that in your work. Like, I suppose more specifically, like what you said about European film, I guess in opposition to that sort of British American, um, more sort of structured, like, um, I guess it's more based on like a narrative structure and like hitting story beats and stuff like that, rather than exploring a visual language, which I think is what you do really well in your work. Um, but one of the things that you do really well in your work, I suppose. But like, do you consider yourself to have a particular visual style that like is like the Kate McCullough cinematography style or something like that, or what?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, I hope that it's not the same every time. I mean, I do just try and whenever I come to the script or project, try and come at it with open eyes and ears, and just really try and tap into what's the essence of the piece. I mean, of course, you're going to be influenced by where you're at that particular time in your life, what what's what you're watching at that time or reading or curious about. So I guess that's part of the sort of baggage that I would bring.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
but sometimes you have to push away some of that to to kind of open up to other ways of thinking. Like the main thing really is to sort of tap into the director's
yeah,
sensibility, and then sort of from that open out a conversation and sort of an over and back kind of debate about where the look should go, and what's the rhythms of the film and the tone and the even just the sound. I sometimes get like slagged off or like I'll suggest the sound that should be for a particular image, and the director is like, yeah, okay, okay. Which department are you in? But yeah, I think it's
right,
just
yeah,
because sometimes you're not thinking about it, like it's of course it's a orchestra of things, so
mm.
can't think about cinematography in isolation. It's
Yeah, yeah, of course. Do you think that the way that you approach projects has changed very much over the years?
I guess I don't know, it's a good question. Like um I guess I probably have more of a sense now what's important to be considering
Mm,
at certain points in the preparation of a film. So
yeah,
before it might have been a little bit more chaotic, um, where I would think of ideas much too late and then they couldn't be implemented. or we would sort of prep in such a way that it would be like way too regimented. So then when you get on set, it's like, you're not freeing yourself up to kind of respond to what's happening in front of you. You're just kind
Yeah.
of kicking off the box. Oh, great, we've got one on the storyboard, So I think there was probably, an element of kind of caution early on because it was all new. So you had to put all the preparation in beforehand. Whereas now, I still love preparing and sort of going through that process. But I tend to kind of put that preparation in the back pocket then
Yeah.
and try and respond to what's happening as it unfolds. Because what tends to happen with prep now is that like everything starts to come into clarity in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Mm.
And so you need to be ready to kind of make key decisions then, as opposed to earlier. There's just very little you can kind of lock down earlier because everything's in this kind of flux.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I think it's understanding the whole process better and at what point you maybe need to convince somebody about doing something a certain way. When to kind of push forward on that or when to sit back and what things to fight for and what to sort of allow to flow.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think there's much of a difference in that process of prep and like getting ready to create those images? Is there much of a difference in doing that between a film project and a TV project?
TV tends to be a little bit more of a marathon, like features really like a middle distance.
Yeah, I suppose like on your normal feature film, you might have say 6 or 8 weeks to shoot it if you're really lucky, and maybe a month. Yeah, maybe a month's prep and so on. But a TV series is like blocks of like a few months at a time. So you're probably there's like I guess there's ongoing prep in that sense for a TV project. Like I'm thinking of the difference between something like Aract and Colin Kuhn versus your experience on like a much longer running thing like Normal People. Something like that,
Well, Normal People was different in that I was following on from a look that was set up already. So the crew were in place.
Okay.
The approach was in place. So I was kind of coming in to sort of embrace that and sort of kind of own it. So it was more just, I suppose, making sure that approach that that I could sit into that and prep in a certain way to suit that approach. So quite different to what anything I had done before, because I would normally have begun everything from scratch.
I mean that must be a really different process in itself, just like kind of it's more industrial in a sense of like did you find it like creatively stifling or anything like that to be in that position?
No, I think like I early on I had to kind of tell myself, I need to embrace this and make it it feels like my own expression. Otherwise I'll just be fighting within that,
Okay.
And I could see the rushes coming in and how strong they were, and how like the performances were really kind of, the chemistry was there, and that was like kind of the key to the series. So it was just about kind of embracing it, and then also kind of adding my little whatever it is I bring to a project that that I still felt like I was kind of being able to like free to express myself. I think like the collaboration with Hetty was it just was very, she was very supportive. She's got a huge amount of experience in TV, and so she was able to kind of support me through that, because it was only really my second TV series. The first one I'd done was Blood. So that was definitely a big learning curve. And then on Normal People, again, it was like, oh right, okay, this is how things are done.
Yeah.
Just sort of navigating the politics of things, and then also kind of holding energy for the creative side.
Okay.
So probably with a feature, you just maybe, well, the features that I've done so far, they're lower budget, so you probably have a little bit more freedom to kind of just do as you wish, and that you don't have to kind of negotiate that through a number of producers and executive producers.
Yeah.
You're sort of free to do as you want. Which, so that could be seen also as a negative thing, that you're not being tested, like the
Right.
concept isn't being tested. So I think it works both ways.
Yeah. Okay. It does sound like a moderately different creative experience being on the two. Like, I've only ever worked on like smaller budget features as well. I've not really done any TV work in that sense as well. So it feels like it's a bit of an alien landscape to me, in a sense. So obviously, like, you turn up and you shoot the thing and you wrap it in the same way, but like, it's just like I don't know what the politics of it are at all. It feels like a almost like a different world. Like there's a different skill set involved in it somehow, or something like that. It's a different way of consuming it.
Yeah, I think there tends to be probably more dialogue as well, like, just from my experience. So,
Do you mean on screen, like?
Yeah. Maybe there's a higher page count then to cover for the day, but like, you could have a very dense descriptive page of scenes that would take you a week to shoot.
Yeah.
It's a bit deceptive.
Sure.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a formative job for me. The Normal People, I learned a lot from it.
Yeah. Well, a film that isn't very dialogue heavy is the one that we're here to talk about. So An Cailín Ciúin is probably one of those films which definitely has the more European sensibility to it, in terms of like crafting images and creating a bit of a visual grammar around the way that audiences will understand the world that these characters are in. Like, I'd love to talk to you about how you got involved in a project like that, and then what your approach was to making this story with the directors and producers.
I don't really read a huge amount, but I had Foster by Claire Keegan a number of years ago. And
that's the short story that An Cailín Ciúin's based on, right?
That's right. Yeah. And so, I just loved it. It was a beautiful book. As a reader, you can just sort of, your imagination can fill in all the other parts. It just sort of frees you up to kind of consider, the themes that are suggested in these little micro scenarios. And I think that's just so powerful. Colin Barres emailed me one day and was like, "Hi, I'm Colin and I'm adapting Foster." And I just thought, wow, okay, this is brilliant. Like, I wouldn't, because I think scripts can be quite clinical when you read them. They're so stripped back. And yeah, but I was like, and I knew what was coming in the end, but God, so sad. And then I met up with him and we had a chat, and he sort of explained to me, what sort of films he was into or was drawing inspiration from, and it was would have been his first feature film, and um, had done a lot of documentary previously, but he was very sort of like quiet and sort of considered way of talking, and so I just immediately we just seemed to kind of click.
Yeah.
Finally, COVID came, and it was like, oh my god, are we going to be able to do this? And they had
Oh yeah.
found Catherine Clinch, the young, fantastic lead, and she, he was like, look, if I can't do it this summer, we're going to have to recast, because it's just such a specific kind of moment in a child's life
Yeah.
where even a year makes such a difference. So anyway, they got the go ahead, and I think it was just like, I think Valhalla or something had started it up again, and then they got the green light to sort of head out into the COVID whirlwind.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, I guess we just seemed to kind of click. I think that was sort of something that, like, I was thinking afterwards, that it was almost like we had sort of made a whole body of films already together. Like,
Okay.
there just was this kind of understanding and sort of appreciation of films that, yeah, it just seemed to be easy to communicate with them, and to develop ideas and sort of work things through. And like, even when we did sort of a test day as well, and Catherine came out, and she was just so ready for the camera. Like, she was, she just sort of like, I'm ready for whatever it is, like, is going to happen with this film. And we ended up, like, I think, using one of the shots from the test day, because it was just already kind of working.
Wow. Which shot is that?
Oh no. That would be giving things away now. That would be your listeners' challenge.
Yeah. Send us your answers on a postcard.
The wrong set of curtains, let's just say, in the shop, but nobody noticed.
Right. Okay. Very good. I mean, like, there's a really distinct visual language in that film that like takes in all these different settings that that this young girl and her, I guess, foster parents, this couple that have taken her in, like, it felt to me when I was watching the film that the story told itself a lot in the way that you chose to frame these different locations. And, like, especially, I noticed this especially in the farmhouse. So, like, there's a lot of shots where the camera was sort of just outside the kitchen in the living room space, or, over at the other side of the table with a really high view that really took in, like, the ceiling of this tall room. And in other spaces, like in the in the dairy or the milking parlor, where they're sort of mucking it out, and it's like this static shot that's quite observational. Like, a lot of that felt observational. It felt a bit fly on the wall, and it felt like you were kind of stepping back from the action in a sense, whereas other parts were really beautiful and poetic, and there's bits of sort of ramped up stuff when she's running and things like this that were, I guess I want to ask you if there was, like, a particular language that you wanted to use, or a way that you wanted people to feel across all those moments, or was there a unifying visual theme that you were trying to bring into that?
I think probably one of the biggest references was Lynn Ramsey's Gas Man. It was a short film she made, and we just sort of talked around that film and was like, what is it that makes it so kind of like, there's a sort of poeticism there, but it's also very kind of real.
Yeah.
Sort of straddles these two spheres, and yeah, so it's trying to tap into that, like, you know, that's the kid's perspective, but also being able to sort of free yourselves up from that a little bit, and go with the lyricism of the moment,
Yeah.
and that there was this kind of other force at play. I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but like, just there's something kind of hanging over the house, you know, it's that
Yeah.
kind of presence, that maybe those kind of moments where it's not that it's somebody watching, but just that you're not committed to just being with Koch as a character, that
Yeah.
there's other factors in play. I think one of the biggest sort of creative decisions was to shoot in the 1:37 aspect ratio, and I think that was, it just seemed to me that it was like the only way to shoot. Like, you know, I remember just
Mm.
suggesting it to Colm, and you know, just the simplicity of this more kind of portrait quality to the frame, where you would
Mm.
sort of include a certain amount, but everything that's outside of that is for her to discover later. You know, it's like she still
Mm.
hasn't quite figured out the world. There's still stuff to be uncovered, and so I think there was an element of that, just sort of trying to simplify down the, the world in a
Yeah.
sense, because also Claire Keegan's writing is so kind of stripped back, um, and so it just seemed to, I think, also with the full frame um, lenses and sensor, uh, that aspect ratio really kind of lends itself to where you can kind of see the characters within the space, but you're not allowing it to take over, you know,
Okay.
on the sides. So it is still very much focused on these people as opposed to this place.
Yeah.
For me, locations are a big factor in how you start to then find the frames, and the blocking of the scenes, and how that influences where the camera goes, and
Mm.
the rhythm of the scene, and where things need to escalate or kind of pull back. So, you know, we really did a lot of work to get the right locations,
Yeah.
and you know, just very kind of authentic, and there's just so much layers there that then when you start to light it, just, you know, there's just, I think that farmhouse, you've got these windows where you can see through, you can see the, like, what's happening outside, and also simultaneously you've got you know, these drama unfolding inside, and
Mm.
I really wanted to make sure that we could see both those kind of existing. You know, there was quite a few windows that were north facing, and we were able to sort of plan the day to suit that.
Mm.
And also that her Koch's family home was a complete other end of the scale. It was very, very small, cramped
Mm.
kind of space. And the windows, the walls were really very, very deep, so it was quite hard to get the light in. But then that's kind of the point of it, that if the light
Right.
doesn't go in, then that's going to be your approach. You know what I mean? It's very, even though it's day outside, it could be any time of the
Yeah.
day. It's just
Yeah.
very little light getting in, and maybe that's from my documentary side of things, but that you know, I want the location to sort of influence then how I'm going to shoot it as well. Like, they have to kind of go hand in hand.
Mm.
Um, and then I suppose the running scenes were about her freedom, like her sense of finding herself, and a sort of an elevated quality to it.
Yeah.
And the car, there was quite a lot of scenes in the car as well, which, yeah, where it was like a lot of contortioning going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, we weren't using like remote heads or anything, so it was me in the car, like trying to get the camera into the right spot. And so we used the Sony Venice, which you can it's quite modular. You can move it into a smaller mode, the Rialto mode. So it just makes it very, very compact. So it's quite useful to get into the corners. And I think those full frame lenses as well just really kind of come into their own in the car, because you start to see the ceiling and you feel like you're in that space.
Yeah. I mean, I did actually feel like I was in the car with the characters when I was watching it. It was no impression of being on a low loader or or like any green screens or anything like that, which is, I guess it's a different way of shooting a car scene, but yeah.
We couldn't afford a low loader, so but it worked really well, actually.
Yeah, no, it really did. Kate, it's been really brilliant to talk to you about this film that I'm really excited for people to see, and about your career, and to get a snapshot of what it's like to be an Irish cinematographer working on films like this.
Sure.
Before you go, I want to ask you these two questions that we're asking everyone that comes on the podcast this year. I haven't warned you about this, sorry. Do you have a favorite film, like a favorite ever film of any kind? I want to ask you what your favorite film is. I also want to ask you if you have a standout Irish film.
Oh, and I think a favorite film of all time, I mean, like Paris, Texas, I've watched probably too many times.
Yeah.
I think it's useful, like when you come back to those films, that just the simplicity of storytelling, it doesn't have to be kind of jazz hands. But like more recently, something like maybe The Lighthouse.
Oh, right, okay.
Kind of inspired by that, and Titan was like a little kind of just jolted me out of the seat.
Yeah.
In a way that like films like that, I just find releases me out of my understanding of what a film can be.
Yeah.
Like I might not watch it enjoying it like all the way through, but just I suppose collectively as a feeling at the end, it's sort of like, wow, okay, cinema is really so powerful, and it can take us here, there, it can kind of open out our perspective on things. And yeah, it just excited me. I think I think film, particularly like feature film, is in a very vulnerable space at the moment, and
the
likes of Titan and Lighthouse have sort of re-inspired me that there is still a home for cinema. Like there's a reason why it still exists, as opposed to everything can be done through TV series, episodical work.
Brilliant.
So yeah, not sure fully your question, but
no, you've given me loads to think about there. I mean, I definitely agree with you on Titan. It's like I found myself just exploring everything about it after I watched it. It was so powerful. It made me feel a lot the same way that Holy Motors did when I first saw it in like about 10 years ago, which is another bizarro French film, I guess. But yeah, just they're good at that, yeah, for one reason or another. But yeah, very powerful.
I've sort of loved to see that. I'd love to see Irish film just sort of release itself a little bit from feeling like we have to show our history or our, like our guilt or our, the Catholic Church, or like, of course these are like really important themes, but maybe they can be explored in a whole new way. You know, I think like we might be a little bit sort of still caught in the weight of our past.
Yeah.
And maybe because there isn't that many Irish films generated annually, that we feel a responsibility to represent certain communities or certain history or stories within our community. But yeah, like let's say Kissing Candace, that was something that I was like, okay, that's definitely there is the background of, you know, Northern Ireland. There's a sense of kind of anger there, you know, it's just bubbling on the film all the way through, but it's not the classic kind of story of Northern Ireland. It's something else. It's sort of, for me, it sort of freed itself up from traditional storytelling, and I did find that quite fascinating as a film. Like, it has a sort of poeticism to it that frees you up to consider the war in Northern Ireland in a different way, like what it leaves behind afterward. Like, what's the remnants of a war? So yeah.
Okay, look, it's been really interesting to talk to you about your work and your career and all these brilliant films that you've been and TV series that you've been involved in. Thank you so much for joining me. We look forward to the release of An Colleen Coon in cinemas across the UK and Ireland very, very soon.